What's going on, Mo? We out here. It's a musician talks episode, and we're essentially just gonna hang out. And this is kind of like my lobby for YouTube, and I'll be using this as a way to kind of like explore some different thoughts, explore some different ideas and things like that based on maybe the topic. We might go into some different things, right? But this is a good way for me to kind of you know be productive before the gym, because usually I'll set up for the gym, but that'll be a very quick task. Like, it doesn't take me long to get ready for the gym, and by that time it's really just sitting in traffic. So I figured if I push back the time at the gym to beat traffic, or to miss traffic or avoid it, then why not make it productive? So I figured I would come on here and chat with you guys and just kind of explain a little bit of my mindset before going into the gym, and the differences between what it used to be and what it is now. Now, a lot of times when I have this conversation with people, I do it, or I have the conversation in a way that I'm listening to them, so that way I can understand what they've learned from their journey and what problems they face. Because some things that other people face in their fitness journey, you may have faced already and can help them. And then in other cases, they may have something that they're working on that can help you in your own journey. So that's where I just do a lot of listening when it comes to having conversations. But most people don't really ask me about my personal mindset and fitness journey. And so I don't really have that conversation from my perspective. I usually have it from a general perspective on the case of, giving advice, helping people, and kind of auditing people's options out there, like making sure they have the most available. And so whenever I think of recent conversations, it was usually around like meal tracking and stuff like that, because that's the big thing on my Instagram, is tracking your food, understanding your food. And right now It's kind of like in a limbo, but it's in a bit of a place where I'm trying to get it to feel more like a community. But Instagram is kind of setting itself up to be more of a gallery. So there is that. But all in all, I think we're gonna just slowly move everybody over to YouTube, so that way we can make things seamless, because YouTube has a lot of utility when it comes to the types of content that I can, give to you guys, from short form, long form, and all that stuff, right? But the main thing about today's episode is, like I said, the mindset before the gym. And usually when it comes to the gym, I try to do this like as a whenever I can fit it into my day type of thing. But I've learned that it's better to have it just a part of the day planned for it, right? And the best results usually come from the plan. But the best example I have of that has been school. So when you think of like young school children, they have like PT or PE, physical education, and stuff like that. It's, structured. It's set for a certain time. It has a lesson plan and all that stuff like that. And then when you think of working with a trainer, it's the same. When you're in a team setting, like you're working with let's say you're on a school team or maybe a community team and things like that, has the same thing. It's all structured. So it would behoove you, if you plan on having any success in the gym, to find some kind of structure with your own regimen, even if it's on a personal level. Like you don't have any like grandiose goals, but maybe you have some personal things, like you want to get stronger or look different or feel better and things like that. Put some structure to it. And so what I've learned, at least for myself, when it comes to this mindset thing, is that my mindset really, really depends on my, not just my mood, but the environment my mood is in. So like I work early in the day. So that's usually most people's creative time. So for me, that's spent on a high level, basically at work. But then once I'm off work, I want to decompress. And then by now, which is around like 5 p.m. in the day, is when I'm feeling creative again. So I can talk to you guys, I can make content, or maybe I can edit or whatever it is, right? So that's why I've learned that I pretty much have like 2 slots in a day that are prime or optimal for going to the gym. Now I can force myself to go anytime, but if I want to have like a good outlook, a good mindset, a good attitude about it, I have pretty much 2 prime slots: really early in the morning, like when I first wake up, or after I've decompressed from, the chores of the day. And that's pretty much it. And the reason they're not two specific times, like 8 a.m. or 9 p.m., is because those schedules can fluctuate, especially for somebody with a career like mine, a musician. So for a musician, I could have a job, gigs, family time, chores, errands I need to run, all that stuff. And they're not as structured as somebody who only works or only has work and family or only has family, so it's a little different. So considering that, I have to structure things. And then you have to consider people who only have family but structure it, only have family and work but structure it. So there's levels to it. And there's levels, and then it's layered, if that makes sense. So when it comes to what I try to do is I schedule things, and I schedule things using a little bit of AI, but a little bit of common sense too. Like, and one of the things is like, I wouldn't schedule my gym time around, really late in the evening, because I know that I would be dead tired. But if I have to, I have to. If it's like, all right, I need to do, a certain amount of time in the gym, or I have a certain goal that I have to hit, then I'm gonna have to make adjustments. But for the most part, I wouldn't intentionally schedule my gym time really late in the day, because for my schedule, I plan on going to sleep. So the idea is to use the time really late in the day to prepare for sleep or to prepare for the next day, So that's where the strategizing comes into play. And so all of that is pretty much really important, because it's going to help me find easier systems to make for kind of not really controlling, but kind of managing my mindset. You can't really control it. You can manage it. So, after a long day at work, if you're tired and don't feel like doing something, you can make it a little easier by having a plan ready for you at the gym or even having a meal ready. And you can make things a little easier for yourself when you have, people around you motivating you too. Because if you're doing it by yourself, it sucks. I've done that plenty of years, plenty of just, going in head first by yourself. And it sucks in a way, but then you start to realize there's more people doing that. And then you eventually will find a community. But the idea behind it is that you want to be able to manage your mindset. And the best way to do it is with systems usually. And systems are something that I think a lot of people underestimate because we're not really explained systems in the general public. We're exposed to them like constantly. Like as kids, when you walk into a classroom, there's a bunch of pictures on the wall, there's a bunch of cubby boards and like designated spaces and names and stuff like that, binders and books and organization. Your teachers built a whole bunch of systems for you in that room to where just about almost everything in that room, if you were to interact with it, they can mitigate or control the outcome. And that's the same way you want to think about your mindset. Like you want to have kind of like a classroom for your brain or your spirit or your soul or your mind. And you want to have it in a way to where it's encouraging, it's positive, and it's nurturing, but it's also willfully challenged. So even like going into the gym, some people use the gym as a way to be like therapeutic, but in a sense, you don't want to be too comfortable to where you're not really making progress, especially if you do have I would say, bigger goal than most, right? For some people, they just want to lose 30, 40, 50 pounds, right? And that can be done by, changing your habits. You can change little habits and just stay consistent. But if you have something like, a certain PR, you want to lift a certain amount of weight and stuff like that, or you want to change your diet, you want to change your lifestyle, you want to live a different way, then you're going to have to make some conscious decisions that are bigger than, what am I going to lift today? Will I do the treadmills or Stairmaster today? It's a little different. But if you're going to do things like that, like if you're going to take it to the next level and really upgrade your fitness and try to really challenge yourself willfully, then you're going to have to do things that are kind of out of the ordinary for what you're used to. And that could mean something that's like scary or, not really scary, but shocking. It's going to be a shock to your system. So for, let's say, like veterans in the gym, like people who've been going to the gym for a very long time, lifting weights sounds like a walk in the park, right? But if you were to tell them they got to do an hour of yoga, some of them might have, a bit of a challenge ahead of them. And then for, people who run a lot, you can flip it. You can have people who run a lot who now have to like lift for the next 16 weeks. That might feel a little bit different to them, and be a bit of a challenge for them to adjust and adapt. And that's pretty much what you'll be having to mitigate if you're going to be a person that wants to be successful in the gym, especially as musicians, if you want to be successful in the gym, because you got, kind of like a businessman or an entrepreneur or an executive, you got a lot more on the line with your health and your mindset than it comes with, just your personal beliefs. So you got to have goals set up for like other people's benefit. Like you got to be like, all right, I got to look good for the camera so that way my photographer has good shots and things like that. I got to do my cardio so I can sound great when I get into the studio and don't sound winded by the time we get an hour into the session, And then there's a lot of things that you can think of to where your health plays a huge role. And then you can start to get into like, oh, I want to have a 6-pack. You can do the silly shit like that. But if you can't like master nutrients, you can't master like your diet, like just your eating habits, not even your diet, just knowing what you're eating and things like that, how to not get sick for longer than 2 years, when you can figure those things out, it makes working a lot easier. It makes going to the gym a lot easier. But if you're going to the gym because of, trying to avoid looking in the mirror and feeling a type of way, or you're going to the gym because you got a diagnosis, worst of all, and things like that, or people are picking on you or saying certain things, your mindset connection to the gym is going to be a negative one. So you got to find ways to like make the goals bigger than yourself, which is the willfully challenging part. And then you got to make the goals strategic, meaning like they got to make sense. Like, what's the point of getting a six pack if no one really cares that you have a six pack, you know? But it makes a lot more sense to be able to have full range of motion in your knees, you know? So that's a goal that makes more sense for maybe your lifestyle, especially if you are a musician or want to raise a family, than trying to just look good. But that's pretty much it. And I think that'll be it for me today. And I will see you guys actually later this evening on a late night at Dame's, and we will have a conversation about a little bit about copyright, a little bit about adjusting and things like that, as well as exploring a little bit more of the musical side of production and things like that. But I will see you guys this evening, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.